Hello, this is Hunter McDermott with another episode of Guitar Blog. This is episode 8. It is Wednesday, August 28th at 5:10 p.m. So I touched on it a little bit last week. The idea of assimilating jazz language. So it's interesting to me that I have to do this at all because I'm so used to in the past this all just happening organically and automatically. Listening to tons of tunes and learning them because I wanted to, because they were fun, and then having all that stuff kind of seep into my subconscious mind. And then when it came time to write tunes, I just had all this material and I couldn't identify it because I wasn't thinking that way. It felt original, and I guess to some extent it was just coming out and then just ideas. So now, working with jazz, trying to assimilate much smaller pieces of language. So I'm not learning whole songs and hoping that some of this stuff just magically appears. I'm targeting specific things that I like that are short, working on them, and still yet to be seen whether or not this is going to work. I have every belief that it will, because this is what everybody tells you to do. But this is my first time really doing this. I spent a lot of time practicing stuff, but everybody's like, gotta transcribe, you gotta learn stuff from records, so that's what I'm doing. Anyway, so last week I touched on this lick from Miles Davis's solo. From Someday My Prince Will Come, the tune I've been working on all month. Kind of trying to hyper focus on one thing, learn a lot about one tune. And it's been nice because it seems like I'm getting closer to developing, for lack of a better word, like a framework for how to work on tunes. So the first thing is work on tunes. So picking a tune that you really want to learn because you like the way it sounds. Getting back to why we're doing any of this in the first place. I heard a song, I thought it was cool, I want to learn it. So there you go. That's the first step. So I picked this tune that I just love from Miles's record of the same name. And then breaking it into parts. So I need to learn the melody, preferably. So I had learned and played the melody here because by playing it low, starting on that lower F, I could kind of play the whole thing in one spot. If I play it closer to the pitch that Miles plays it on the record, he's way up here. But then I'm run out of space, so I have to jump up to different parts of the guitar. And my reflex is to not do that. Like, oh, well, I need to stay in position. But you don't. It's important to understand, be able to hear the melody, be able to play all over the place, and not worry so much about whether or not something fits or doesn't fit. It fits on the guitar. I do have to go up pretty high, but it fits from like a range standpoint, and that's really all that matters. Something like that. So learning the melody well enough to be able to play it in a couple places, preferably even more, but at least a couple places I think is a good place to start. Different octaves, if you will. Learning the harmony, so learning the chords, having them more or less memorized. So the way I've broken it out is, the way I've been approaching chords for the last year or so is just strictly drop 2, drop 3, mostly drop 2. Drop 2 being chords on strings 1, 2, 3, and 4. That kind of thing. So working on playing the tune entirely, trying to voice lead connecting chords, just using drop 2 voicings from that string set, for example. So that kind of thing. Doing it in different places. What would that be? So restricting myself to that, but again, trying to make it musical. So not just learning a bunch of chords, but connecting them in a musical way. And that's proven to be a whole lot easier to remember in the heat of the moment. I'm not trying to remember what a B flat chord is. I'm dipping into the chord arrangement that I wrote basically for the tune, and I've got several of those to reach from. And right now, if worst case, all I can do is run that same chord pattern over and over again. That's fine, right? It sounds good. Some variety would be better, but that'll come with time and the more comfortable I get with this kind of stuff. But this is a great way to get more comfortable with it. And it's all kind of leading back to composing, right? I'm putting together these chords in a musical way. And anytime you're working with a melody, it's going to stick in your head better than if I'm just trying to remember what a B flat chord is. Or whether I should even be playing B flat. It's just kind of like whatever your brain does where it groups things together so that you don't have to think about each component piece. You just go, I'm playing the chords of Someday My Prince Will Come now. And your brain will feed you all this information to make that happen without you having to think about each piece. So working out the melody, working out the chords in 3 different arrangements, 2 drop 2 voicings and 1 set of drop 3, learning the melody in a couple different places, and then taking the time to learn solos, preferably by transcribing, because again, it's working on your ear. So I've been also working on Miles' solo. And I'm continuing to go on to the next chorus after that one. I learned Hank's solo. I learned the second half of that. I haven't mined anything from that quite yet, but I just really like it, and it was a fun thing to learn. And then writing my own solo. And what else? So then the next step would be practicing those things. Okay, you've transcribed something, now practice it, like learn it, get it under your fingers. And then the step that we finally reached now, which is mining these things for pieces of language. Pieces of vocabulary that you can either use over this tune, or better yet, pull out of the context of this tune and use just in general. I haven't quite gotten to that point yet, though, sorta. But anyway, so last week I chose this lick, which is a 2-5, C minor 7, F7, B flat 7, B flat major 7. And I chose a 2-5 lick just because I knew that it would have maximum utility. 2-5 progressions are so common. I'll get a lot of mileage out of this. So then, the reason I think I've been daunted by this process of taking something into all 12 keys, as everybody will tell you to do, is that on the guitar, there's just so many different places you can play the same thing, different octaves you can play it. I just felt daunted. Like I didn't have a sensible way to approach this without it feeling like a mountain of material to go over, which is just discouraging. So not that this is necessarily simple to pick up, this certainly challenged me, but the approach that I took was to attempt to stay in one position on the neck and challenge myself to figure out all the different keys in one place. And so by doing this, I am effectively hitting every single permutation in different keys. So instead of going, okay, here's the one from the record, down an octave, and then here it is up here, and here it is here, and here, and trying to remember all of that, I'm just staying in one place and saying, okay, here's the one I'm starting with. Then, for sake of practice, let's go by fourths. So let's assume we shifted keys from B flat to E flat. You go up a fourth from where you were, and you play the lick there, then you go up a fourth again, and then again. So through that process, I'm staying in one general location. I'm having to think about the notes, the root notes moving in fourths, and then of course starting on the 9 of the 2 chord, right? So I'm having to do that number crunching as well. And through that process, I can kind of stay in one place and run through lots of the same thing in different keys and learn all the different keys without having to learn all the different keys, if that makes sense. So like if I know that works over B flat, well, what will work over B is right above it. It's exactly the same thing. But then if I know that this starts on D, then I can go this direction, or I can go this direction. Or I can go from this D down the neck or up the neck. Because now I know what the shape looks like visually. So now it's just a matter of finding the root and tackling it. So anyway, enough talking. I thought what I would do today is a couple things to finish this out. One is I'm going to take this lick into all 12 keys in waltz time, which is what the tune is actually in. So it'll be the exact riff from Miles in the actual rhythm that he uses. And it's over a long 2/5, so 1 measure of each chord and then 2 measures of the 1 chord. So before it repeats. So once I get to that chord and the lick is over, I've got time to kind of, either just rest and wait to start it again, or to maybe noodle a little bit, try to be improvisational around the lick that I'm working on. So I'll take it into all 12 keys in waltz time as best I can, and then I'm going to try to do it in 4/4 time as well, because waltz time is not, in my experience, as common, certainly as 4/4 time for jazz standards. So it would behoove me to take this out of 3/4 into 4/4, but rather than prescribe a specific way of doing it, like, okay, I'm morphing the 3/4 into 4/4 in this exact way, I'm going to play it this exact way, I'm just going to kind of wing it. So I'm going to take the main rhythm that I already know and just try to make it fit into 4/4 in probably lots of various ways. And I think this is cool too, because it's taking the core idea of the lick and it's making it improvisational. I know it in my head and I can run through it, but I've got freedom to kind of run through it as much as I want and to effectively make it my own, right? To where it no longer sounds like Miles, because it's in a different key signature, maybe in a different key altogether, time signature, different key, and played with a different rhythm. And that's the goal, right? That's the innovation part, perhaps, right? You imitate it, then you assimilate it or whatever. You learn it really well in a lot of different places, and then you innovate, you modify it, and turn it into your own thing. All right, so here it is in waltz time. We'll go through all 12 keys, starting with the original key, B flat. I am repeating each one. Now we have the key change. to the original key. So something like that. So I'm already getting to the point where I'm fiddling with the rhythm, sort of stopping it and starting in different places. And as I get more comfortable, I feel more comfortable stringing them together into the various keys, and then also trying to play them in different places, like play it there the first time and then here the second time. And so I didn't have to work on it in that key. I didn't have to go, okay, now today I'm working on A flat, and then just drill a bunch of shit in A flat. I could get a lot of stuff from a lot of different keys by just doing it in one position and switching keys. And then when I go to any given key, I already know all the different ones because of all the practice I've worked on in one key. So I'm really pleased by how that has worked out. And that's encouraged me to do more of this and feel less daunted by it. So there's a tip for you. Don't worry about learning everything in every place in every key. Just learn it in one place, and it will multiply itself through all the other keys automatically. All right, so to wrap this up, I'm going to switch the time signature to 4/4, and we'll do the same thing, same chord progression through all 12 keys, just with a different time signature. So I'll have to get creative on how I make that riff fit. So here we go. Octave displacement there. Cool. I lost my place a couple times there, but anyway, so that's really cool and really useful. So I'm getting more comfortable with that piece of vocabulary such that I can just kind of wing it. which is the goal. So what might be fun next step with that particular lick would be to take it into like a quick 2-5. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't fit that well, but see if you can modify it even further to make it even more useful. Which is really what we're getting back to, like the melodic cells stuff that I was talking about. Very small pieces of vocabulary that you can string together. But I like this approach better because it's more musical, and it's because it's being pulled from pieces of music. So we'll see how this pans out long term. But anyway, so that's it for this week. If you've ever heard someone say take it in all 12 keys and it seemed impossible on the guitar, well, it's not as impossible as it seems. So try that in one position thing and see how that works out for you. That's it. So I'll see you next week.